All right. Thank you very much, Eric, Rich, and Chris for inviting us to speak today. So, our president and CEO, Andrew, couldn't be with us here today. He's actually presenting our project to the Association of Professional Engineers back at home in Saskatchewan, which is kind of too bad because he's a much better presenter than myself. But I'll do my best and give you a quick overview of who we are and what we're doing. I've cut the presentation in half due to time, so I'll be right next door if anybody has any further questions or would like more details as to what we're up to. So, we're a helium exploration and production company headquartered in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. First of all, I guess, I'll run through helium a little bit. Helium, we kind of know what it is, but what is it really used for? How do you get it? Where is it? And how valuable is it? We probably all know about party balloons. That's what helium is used for. And perhaps you also know that it's used in MRI machines for medical technology. Just to give you an idea, each MRI machine contains about 1,700 liters of helium. To give you an idea of what that is, that's about 500,000 party balloons. So, but then where is the real growth? And this is key with helium is where's the demand growth coming from? Well, it's companies like this. So something that we hear more and more about lately, rockets. So SpaceX, NASA, they've been some of the largest corporate consumers of helium recently. It's used as inert light ballast for rocket engines. Another big growth area, Google, Amazon, and those guys, helium is used in their server farms to cool the server farm, as well as in the manufacturing of their solid-state hard drives. Of course, then, very similar, the likes of Taiwan Semiconductor and Intel. Helium is used actually as a purge gas in order to manufacture computer chips. They purge their facilities with helium to prevent contamination or flaws in these tiny electronics. For similar reasons, Samsung, companies like that, it's also used in the manufacture of LCD panels, so for your cell phones, TVs, and computer screens, as well as fiber optics. And I think a little more relevant to this particular conference, consortiums like GE, Hitachi, actually in Ontario, they're working on SMRs, so small modular reactors for the production of energy. So, as demand continues to grow, especially in those high-tech industries, on the supply side, the United States used to be the dominant supplier of helium in the world. But since 2014-15 or so, it has started to dwindle dramatically. In other words, going from dominance to near the lowest in the world. Russia is now the largest producer of helium. So when we started this company, we were approached by companies out of Japan, for example. This is obviously before the Russia war, and they definitely are looking for new sources of supply, a Western world supply of helium. So timing really couldn't be better. I mean, the Russia-Ukraine war has exacerbated the short supply dramatically. As I mentioned, Russia is the largest supplier of helium, so that's kind of landlocked now. And as mentioned, the U.S. supply falling dramatically. This really, what has happened even just in the last 6 months or so, has brought the price of helium to all-time high levels. How high? Back in 2014-15 or so, helium was priced at about $100 an MCF, or 1,000 cubic feet. Currently, it's north of $600 per MCF. So to give you an idea of what that is, natural gas is also priced in MCF, or 1,000 cubic feet. Natural gas is probably trading at, it's doubled in the past few months, but it's probably $7 or $8 per MCF. So helium is really a very high value commodity. Okay, so where do you get helium, or where is it, or where does it come from, and yeah, how do you get it? Helium is formed as the natural decay of uranium and thorium deep within the Earth. So it's formed in the Precambrian basement. This would be below those levels where you find oil and gas. So where the dinosaurs lived, it's beneath that. So quite deep. In Saskatchewan, we are drilling down about 2,900 meters down, so almost 3 kilometers deep. So how do you get helium then? Well, in fact, it's actually produced by drilling, just like oil and gas. So picture here is a regular oil and gas drill rig. That's the rig that we used to be drilling for this stuff. All of the significant helium that is produced in the world, on the planet, is produced as a byproduct of natural gas production. Why is that? Well, helium is formed in the Precambrian basement. Helium, given that it is inert, it will not bind with any other element on the periodic table, and it's very small and very light, tends to start to escape. And it migrates its way upwards, and sometimes it gets trapped in those oil and gas pools above it. So the only exception currently on the planet is Saskatchewan. It seems by sort of a freak of nature, Saskatchewan having some of the highest concentrations of uranium in the world, the helium as well is actually trapped down below the oil and gas levels, right where it's formed. It seems to be trapped there. So helium in Saskatchewan since the 1960s has been produced as a primary gas, carried in nitrogen, also an inert gas. You could actually vent it to the atmosphere. Helium you could as well, but obviously we want to capture that. So where are we? As mentioned, we're in Saskatchewan. We started this company as a private company back in 2015 or 16 or so, and started amassing helium lease land. We span all the way from the Alberta border on the left-hand side, almost to the Manitoba border on the east side. As I mentioned, just in the past few months, obviously, due to the Ukraine war, there's been a huge spike in the price of helium. Well, that really was an opportune moment for us. Just this past week, Monday, we announced that we were taking over one of our competitors, Imperial Helium, in our neighboring province of Alberta. So we're expanding over to Alberta. So there's a little green star over there. It's actually only about a 2-hour drive to our first set of lands in Saskatchewan, so it's actually very, very close. If anybody has any questions about the takeover, I'm happy to answer those questions separately. There's a lot of data and thoughts that go into that, but these 2 next slides are probably the most important for you guys as investors. seems like a really cool idea, but how do you make money with this? So, what have we done for the past year, and where are we going tomorrow? Those are the two most important things for investors. So, over the past year or so, we raised $20 million. With that $20 million in capital, we have now amassed 1 million acres of helium land in 10 or 11 separate fields or target pools right across east-west in Saskatchewan. We will have drilled 8 helium wells, one of which is a brand new discovery. We got to name it. It's never been mapped or drilled before, ever in Saskatchewan history. We called it Nazare. We named it after the largest wave ever surfed on the planet in Portugal. That is a company maker on its own, so I won't talk too much about it. We drilled a 4th well into that area specifically to test it. It is on the order of 30 times larger than any other helium reservoir in North America. It is currently undergoing modeling and simulations at the University of Regina for how we may or may not be able to complete it. So very exciting, but quite separate. All our other wells are conventional helium wells, and that leads us to this acquisition and what we're doing next. To put things into perspective then, Imperial Helium, the company that we've made an agreement to take over, which should close by the end of June or so. They also started last year with about $20 million. They drilled 3 wells, two of which are successful, and they are actually ready to produce. And they amassed about 61,000 acres. So we'll be adding that to the very front end of this next slide. So where are we going and what's happening next? As mentioned, we've drilled several wells. Probably, no promises here, but a couple of key milestones that should drop probably before the acquisition of Imperial Helium happens, so within the next month or so. We will be commissioning 3 processing plants. These plants are quite simple, not that simple, but they're definitely not as difficult as processing natural gas. These mobile separation units basically use a series of membranes or filters to filter out the gas. Helium, being the smallest molecule, passes through these membranes or filters, and it goes into tanks, and that's where you sell it. So if we complete this acquisition of Imperial Helium, like I say, it'll be 3 plants. If we don't, it'll be 2. Nonetheless, we're looking at initially here getting 3 wells on stream by the end of the year. Of course, following that is sales. Like what do you do with it? Well, obviously you have to sell it. In the helium space, they tend to be long-term sales agreements or off-take agreements. We've been negotiating these for the past year and a half. And again, no promises, but we're very close, and potentially we could be signing these type of agreements before this acquisition closes. Why is this all very important? Well, there are currently no public helium producing companies. So there are lots of private ones. So for the investing public, there's no way to really come up with valuation metrics. You know, what is the company worth? How many cents or dollars per share is it worth? Well, the ingredients that you need are those ingredients that are coming up here in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. Offtake agreement, so sales agreement, you know, is it going to be $450 US per MCF that we sell all our helium for the next 5 years? Processing plants, you know, how much can we produce per day, per year? Those kind of metrics will be coming to you, I hope, in very short order. Then I guess probably quite important for the stock market side of things is, okay, that's well and good to get started, but as you know, stocks always reflect what happens in the future. What's the growth going to be? Well, this is where the 1 million acres comes in. We have a huge runway for growth. So once we get started, our goal is actually to, in the next 3 years or so, to have 30 to 40 wells on stream and selling helium. So we have a huge runway for growth, and that's our goal, that's our dream, and it all starts almost tomorrow, within the next couple of 3 weeks. This is pivotal for this company and our investors. That's really about it. Part of the goal, the 30 or 40 wells, we hope to go well beyond that, but in a brand new initiative by the Saskatchewan government, they announced just late last year, they announced some incentive programs to help companies like ours attain a very lofty goal. Canada produces less than 1% of the world's helium currently, and the Saskatchewan government has announced, they stated late last year that they would like the province to be producing 10% of the world's helium supply by the year 2030. That's coming pretty quick, so we're pretty happy, proud that we will be a big portion of that. So that's about it, pretty quick. If anybody has any questions, I'll be next door. I've got lots more details in the full deck. Thank you.
We have any questions from the audience? Puneet, coming your way, buddy.
Hey, Dean, great presentation. I've finally got head wrapped around how to what the opportunity is in helium. Can you just explain where you are at with the production facilities and the stage of development there, and how long those will take to come online, or are they already online?
Sure. So we've had our engineers and ERP consultants on this for the past 6 or 8 months or so. All the design work is done. We've actually got plans for a permanent facility, and also these 3 mobile separation units. So all the design work is done. As I suggest that upcoming here in the next few weeks or a couple of weeks, we would like to announce that we're commissioning those. With supply chain issues on certain components of it, what used to be 3 months to build a mobile separation unit, we are kind of budgeting anywhere from 6 to 9 months. So we're looking to be in production, fingers crossed, by the end of the year.
Hey, Dean, this is Bernie. Can you just comment a bit on the potential sales per well, or the range, and what are the variables that affect that?
Sure. So every well's different, very similar to oil and gas, but our internal modeling using $200 US helium price, as I kind of alluded to, it's short spot prices near 600 US. We hope to lock in a longer term agreement for 400. But anyway, at $200 US, we're looking at wells that can produce free cash flow of about $3 million per year per well. That number now obviously is closer to, well, we did the metrics on the acquisition of Imperial Helium. Their wells are very similar to ours. They flow a little bit more, but the concentration level's a little bit less, so on par, fairly equal. That pool we're looking at, we believe, at $400, maybe $8.5 million a year in free cash flow. Now remember, free cash flow, what you end up doing with that, just like an oil and gas company, with that free cash flow, you go drill more wells. So that's the whole idea there.
What would be the longevity of a well?
So These wells in Saskatchewan and in Alberta historically, again, Saskatchewan's been producing primary helium, private companies, so we don't have the exact revenue numbers, et cetera, since the 1960s. But, and this is important for the growth of the company. These wells last about 10 to 12 years. I don't know if you're familiar with what a decline rate is, but on the decline, it's very shallow. So in other words, the first 3 to 6 years, it's fairly steady before production starts declining and ending in 10 or 12 years. Why this is important, like if you look at some of the shale gas plays in the United States, the problem with those is they may start at 20 million cubic feet a day in production, but within 8 months, they're cut in half, and then before 2 years is up, they're all the way down to like 1 million cubic feet a day, but that lasts for 10 years. So with us, if it's fairly steady at the beginning for the first 3 or 6 years, that free cash flow can beget multiple wells. So the payback, so it costs about $1.5 million to drill one of these wells. You can actually get that money back in weeks. Then it's all free cash flow after that.
Hi, this is a two-part question, which I may have missed the first part, which was, what's the rate of increase of global demand for helium year over year?
It's approximately 6% CAGR.
Okay. And then your customers, are those wholesalers or they're direct? Like you?
Oh, okay. So this is really actually quite interesting. Only a year ago, when we started having people give us a call, they were the major companies, you know, like the Air Liquides, the Praxairs, the Lindy's, those type of guys. You know, their offtake agreements are long-term, anywhere from 4 to 7 years. They kind of have a monopoly over the business. But what has happened over just even the last 3 or 4 months, it's quite interesting. The smaller midstream companies, as well as some of those end users, are actually coming to the market and offering offtake agreements. They want to buy it direct, which has really changed things. It didn't exist 6 months ago. You know, you were locked in for 5 years at a nominal price. Now you've got these big corporations coming to you and saying, look, will you write us a 1-year contract? We'll buy everything you can at $600. So obviously the shorter term contract, the price is substantially higher, almost like a spot price.